Yeah, I would say the majority of salespeople are selling a product that they believe in. Because what happens is somebody that's good at selling a product they don't believe in, eventually a lot of them they're like, well, I'm good at selling, but let me go find a product that I do believe in so that I can stay the course. What in the hell is going on with you guys? We hadn't been on here in a little bit. Me and my buddy Steven Martinez been getting really busy and ready for Medicare Con, growing the team.
Been on a little bit of a hiatus, but it's not because a lack of working.
No, we've been working. We've just been doing a lot of the granular stuff, and we're really, excited. We're growing and evolving our team to be more efficient and get a lot of the, busy work that ties up different people off of our plate so that we can focus on bigger, broader, better stuff. But recently we went down to GrowthCon. Now, I was in
all the way to Miami.
At Hollywood,
Florida. Hey,
I had somebody correct me. They're like, "That's almost Fort Lauderdale." I was like, "Bro, it's all Miami to me. I don't know."
I flew into Miami. Okay.
Yeah, I flew into Miami, and then I was at a hotel. So I was down in Turks and Caicos on a spring break trip that got extended due to some travel craziness. Worked out okay for me though.
Worked out well.
Worked out well. But then we flew back, and the very next day when I finally got back, we're heading to GrowthCon. So I had bought a ticket. I had kind of gotten sold into it, and then about 2 days before I got back, I was like, I need somebody else from the team. I need my CMO there so that he can help me relay.
So I was lucky enough to get that ticket.
So
Thank you.
Johnny was there, but Johnny, is just coming from a different perspective. Johnny's, heavily involved in sales, and so it's great from probably a sales motivation. Plus he got to swim at Grant Cardone's birthday party when nobody was supposed to swim. So,
yeah.
But so I texted Steven a couple days before we got back. I said, Steven, can you, if I buy you a ticket to GrowthCon, will you come down there with me? So he's like, yeah. So.
No, I didn't respond for about 30 minutes. And before I knew it, he said, got you a ticket, buy a plane ticket. So by the time I read the first message that asked me if I was willing to go, the next message was followed up by buy your plane ticket.
If I sit around for too long, I talk myself out of good ideas. So
it was a good surprise for me because honestly, I had looked at it and I didn't even cross my mind to go to something like that until you mentioned it to me. And then when I was like, wow, I was like, yeah, that would be quite the experience once you said that. And I was like, I told Heather, I was like, I'm going. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll be out of town for a couple of days.
Well, it's, for us, the reason that I wanted to go to GrowthCon is maybe not the same reason that everybody wants to.
Right.
I watch, sometimes Grant Cardone stuff because, I believe he's a master marketer. I believe
best marketer in the world.
I think he's the best marketer.
Absolutely.
I think, prior to him, regardless of what you say, Trump was probably one of the best marketers out there too. And I think he took a lot of notes from him, but he's more tenacious about it than Trump ever was, I believe. Now I think maybe he adapted that later in life, and so he's playing a lot of catch up. But it's very, interesting to watch that evolution of him. But anyway, I had watched that stuff, but I'd never really been to any of his events. Didn't really buy any of his products other than I bought his books. I've read or listened to pretty much every book he has, and they're good, whether you like them or not. Same thing with Trump. Doesn't matter. I don't care. I really don't.
They're
you can
good at what they do.
They're good at what they do. You can be like, oh, he's bombastic, or he's a show off, or whatever. Normally, that's what wieners say about people anyway that are jealous. But I don't have any quorums with the guy. But I'd never gone to GrowthCon. I didn't really see how it fit. But as we throw events and we serve our community, our agent community in a way that I think he served a lot of broad range sales communities and real estate agents and things like that, car salespeople. I just began to think it's important to go and see the level of production because we throw Medicare Con and we want that to get bigger and better. And I don't necessarily want it to turn into a non-valuable athlete showcase
right.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there's also, you do want quality production. so that people feel like, hey, this is worth coming to every year. It's a great combination of practical information and quality production. And so going to that showcases that.
That's what excited me the most, because like I said, we already know what Grant's capable of, and he's been doing this growth conference. So I think this is seven years in a row or whatever that he's done it, and so going to see all of that production like happen and to see it all come together, like it was just reassuring to know that what we're doing, like we're on the right track with a lot of things, but then there's a lot of areas that we can improve in. And so it was just interesting to see that, because I mean, it's not like that was our first event. We've been to lots of other events, right? And there's always something that like I'm looking around, I'm taking away from like everything as far as environment and how stuff's put together.
I think
how
we've taken something from the worst events we've been to. We've still found something to take from it.
There's always something to take, because there's always something, like I said, if you haven't been some lifelong event planner or coordinator, then there's always going to be something that you're overlooking, you're not thinking about.
Yeah.
And so, just to see what their pain points are, because there were some, right? It's not like GrowthCon was some flawless experience. There was a lot of things that happened, and you could tell that they weren't planned, and they had to make some adjustments on the fly. But again, that's kind of the beauty of seeing that and just knowing, okay, like you're not going to be perfect no matter how big or how good you get your event to go to, but how are you going to deal with that? How are you going to pivot on the fly and make them decisions to overcome that? And so I think that's one of your strong points, is like you're always going to say, oh, like if this is messing up, like, okay, let's do this. Let's abandon that. We got to go this way, do it quick, and don't think about it.
Yeah, being operating, even no matter how big you get, trying to operate like a tugboat versus like a huge barge. It's very difficult to turn around, in the middle of, your traction as a barge, but we want to operate like we can just turn on a dime, like a little tugboat. But,
good analogy.
And that's what, we want to be able to do that, so we can pivot quickly. And as big as Grant and them do, I think they pivot pretty quickly. They just haven't, his team is conditioned for it. And one thing that I will say being there is I was so impressed by his staff.
Yes.
Like the professionalism, their demeanor, how polite they were, how aggressive they were in sales, but not in a way that didn't make me feel bad.
Right.
It made me feel like they were doing their job.
They were aggressive, but they were still personal about it, in a way where they were creating the relationship still, right? They were still inquisitive about who you are, what you were doing, and still truly interested in what you had going on. And then how they could help you, grow that. And that's truly what they believed. So they were aggressive about it, but they really believed it at their core.
Yeah. The aggressiveness, and sometimes I don't even know, like as I've been thinking about it, and I've said aggressive a lot, maybe aggressive is not the word to describe it. It's committed to sparking the conversation. If you ever went into, I don't know what they did to cause this, but if you ever went into this clothing store Buckle when I was a teenager, they had a thing called the Buckle Challenge. And the challenge was if you can walk and touch the back wall and get out before a sales rep asks you if you need help, like that, you would win the challenge, right? Because their sales reps for a clothing store were like notorious for like getting after you, but they were paid on commission. I think they were paid like $4 an hour plus commission on all clothing sales. And so they were, but it was never like tacky. Sometimes like we have a way of like, oh, please don't talk to me. Like,
well, it's what most people consider like car salesmen or furniture salesmen. When you go to the furniture store, like, they're the first ones to greet you, because again, they work on commission. It's a very sales driven job. So do they really believe in the product that they sell you as much as they're just trying to get you to buy any product in the store? Yeah. So there's like you said, I don't know if aggressiveness or aggression is the word when it's coming to describing them, because again, they weren't pushy. They weren't, overly like, this is what you need to do, but they had a way of going about it to making you know that they believed that what they were offering you was the best thing for you. And I guess that's just a high level of confidence in the product that you're selling.
Yeah, they were extremely confident in the product they're selling. To me, they seemed all very bought in, and a lot of that too showcased itself in their like in the daily training aspect. So I wanted to get to something while we were there. Call me a sucker, whatever. We spent I bought a front row ticket. Bought Steven had a diamond ticket. We bought a group rate for our entire staff for Cardone University, and we're not exactly lacking in training, but I just kind of got the idea that they had a good thing going in Cardone U. We bought this thing called the TBT,
Total Business Transformation.
10x 360, 10x stages. Basically, I bought almost everything they have, short of like getting into partnerships with them and stuff like that.
The ventures and foundation and stuff like that.
Pretty much, I would guarantee you that almost everything you've ever done with that group, if you're watching this, I just bought it at one time. But I didn't buy it just for me. I bought it for our team to use it. So the events, me and Steven will go to one. Me and our Chief Operating Officer, Justin Stark, will go to one. I'll maybe send Johnny, maybe send, some of our other team members to these different ones because we bought the scaling workshop, the sales workshop, all these things. We'll get them to these events. You get into Cardone U and have them do daily training in there. They're already doing daily training in Go Guru University, but that's all what they talk about there is like our product training, our market specific training, and we have sales training in Go Guru University, but it's specific to our industry. This is just like regular motivation, keeping the momentum going, and just conversational sales training. And so I'm in it too. Like I went in there, I was like, we could all use more. Of course, I've listened to his audiobooks, which have done us a lot of good. So just a tremendous amount of value I saw in pouring in our team. We spent with them in less than 2 weeks. I spent with them about $105,000, came close to $106,000.
Yeah.
Now some of that, we did some expensive tickets to the show as well, a $20,000 front row seat. But, we're getting to look at it and kind of reverse engineer, not the exact same kind of business, but how those same concepts will apply to our business, looking and seeing what's worked for somebody, but then putting our own creative spin on certain things, drawing inspiration from, not copying. Unfortunately, there are, groups in the country that seem to copy what other people do, like verbatim, and then just steal it. Our goal is to draw inspiration from, create, and then make it our own and make it better in some ways or different just because it's a different, industry. But then, the buying all of that stuff, like I was sold that. I mean, I went in and their salespeople were good. They were persistent. And, by the end of it, the showcase on buying some of the stuff, like when the salespeople are selling you and they're nice and they're polite, but they're persistent. They have great rebuttals. They have things that I'd never seen before, to the point of you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, yeah, I want to buy that because I want my salespeople to be able to do what you do. And you are a showcase of what you're selling. Like the product, the end result of what you're telling me is what you're doing in this moment and in every single interaction. So I didn't buy something from every salesperson, but eventually they wore me down because I was like, you know what? I want my salespeople to be relentless.
You guys have what I'm looking for in my sales team. And that was a big thing that Justin did. I mean, it's not like he went and he spent all this money on himself, right? Like we spent money to get in the room, but once we were there, we realized how much more we needed to pour into bettering our team. And how much better can we make our team? Because ultimately, this business is going to thrive on the backs of our team and how good they are. So if we could get our team to that, because they're sitting there, they're telling you about what their systems are. And then, like he said, you get to come out and you actually get to experience that firsthand, because everybody that you talk to there, his whole staff, I mean, everybody was so polished. They handled objections really well with their rebuttals. Like it was, like I said, it blew my mind away. And I was sold. It was funny because me and Justin were both there, but we were sitting in kind of different sections. And so it's just, we weren't communicating a lot during the day. Like, we were watching the conference and then go into our breaks and things like that. But I was already sold on the TBT, like transformation bundle. I'd already talked to a girl on it and everything. And, like, I was just like, I'm not the ultimate decision maker. Like, let me talk to my partner. But before I could even talk to Justin, he comes to me and he was like, I bought the TBT package. And I was like, oh, well, great. Like, I was kind of going to talk to you about that because it was kind of interesting. So it was funny because, like, we're right there. Like, we're thinking the same things in there because, again, it's how much more value can we bring to our team and how much more can we raise them up, because that's what's ultimately going to get us where we need to go.
Yeah. So, in personal and team development, we spent almost $106,000 in, a matter of, really the majority of that was all but 20,000 of it, I think, was within 3 days. And probably all but 30,000 of it was in 1 day. And they still had things to sell us, by the way, but it got into like charitable donations and stuff. But
they wanted to take your kids to the Bahama.
Yeah. Oh, they wanted to
charity or whatever.
They wanted to go to a charitable event for Grant Cardone Foundation. But anyway, I don't get mad at salespeople. If you avoid conferences or you go to conferences, if you go to conferences, you're pissed off at people trying to sell you something, or if you avoid conferences because you might be sold something and you're a salesperson,
that baffles me.
Like that's the oxymoron. Like, you shouldn't go to a conference, for salespeople and not be tried to sell something. And by the same metric, guys, like, sometimes, like in our industry in insurance, people say, "Oh, well, somebody told me this the other day. You either go down the road where you charge for it, or you go down the road where you do it for free as an FMO." And I'm like, no, that's like 1988, 1995. Like, things are changing, and for me to be able to invest the time that I need to develop an infrastructure that actually supports you. We have to charge people stuff because I want committed people and I want people that'll pay for things. Plus, we're trying to develop a better product than what you get off of a few nickels off of dripping overrides. So it takes a long time. Of course, the old FMOs would like it to be that way and perpetuate that because they've had time to amass the production that keeps them going. But when you're providing, really intense software as a service platforms, Lightspeed virtual training opportunities where you have interactive training that you're consistently adding to, like GoGuru University and GoGuru Pro CRM, or if you are, taking the time to investing your time into the development of underwriting software, or building a team that supports and contracts and streamlines contracting processes over a period of time. All that stuff costs money, and people that don't see the value in what we do, like, especially when you're starting to talk about like $97 a month, like, you're like, if that upsets somebody that they're being sold something, like, move on.
Yeah.
Get out of the industry. Because, like, of course you're going to be a Medicare Advantage and FPL 150% or a lower, ACA salesperson, because you can't possibly have the stomach to sell somebody something where they have to put it on bank draft. Even though you buy things that cost you money and you see the value in it, oh, heaven forbid somebody sell me something.
Well, like you said, that's always baffled me, because even though I've never been in a position to maybe purchase everything, like, I've always listened to salesmen just because I appreciate the salesmanship of it.
Yeah.
And maybe I've probably bought some things sometimes because I will sit there and listen to people and let them go on. And then I finally am like, don't sound so bad after all. He did a good job. Like, I'll buy it just because you did such a good job.
Yeah.
But that's just the type of person I am. You can't go to that type of thing and be mad because somebody's selling you something and it's literally what you do every day.
I mean, yeah,
it's like
that there are like articles that I've read about the buying threshold of the most successful and wealthiest people in the country. And it's actually typically lower than most because they make decisions fast and they don't stew and wait and overthink things or get upset that somebody's trying to sell them something, because they don't tie a whole bunch of emotion to that other than, sure, great, I'll try it. If I don't like it, oh well, I lost X amount of dollars, and I don't buy everything, but I will buy things if I see value in it pretty quickly. Yeah. Unfortunately, there are some people that will see the value in it, have the money for it, and then just fail to make a decision because they don't want to have to decide, and they're upset that someone is trying to pressure them at all, even with education, because sales is education. Some people say, I don't sell, I educate. Sales has always been educational. Now, there might have been a time where they, in an unregulated industry, sales was lying, but sales is not lying in most cases now, because most industries are regulated to a stance where they can hold them accountable for lying, especially ours. You can't just go around telling people whatever you want to and get away with it. You'll lose your license pretty quickly. But you can't be upset about
it's the only reason like scams exist, because I'm here to educate you about something you're unfamiliar with. And if you're unfamiliar with this, then I can scam you into doing something that probably is not within your best interest. Hopefully, like, you deal with good, people that have not them intentions at all, but there are good salesmen out there that are doing the right thing, selling products that are good. So
yeah, I would say the majority of salespeople are selling a product that they believe in. Because what happens is somebody that's good at selling a product they don't believe in, eventually a lot of them they're like, well, I'm good at selling, but let me go find a product that I do believe in so that I can stay the course. It's why a lot of, like guys at certain parts of the industry end up migrating to health and Medicare because, regardless, like, it's so funny we get tied up into Medicare supplement versus Medicare Advantage. You're talking about the battle of good and better, because people don't, Medicare Advantage is bad. And then they're 50 years old and they're on a short-term medical, or they're on a group plan. Like, if they had the option to deal with a Medicare Advantage plan, they would. So it's a battle of good and better.
Yeah.
We don't get to, ACA, getting into ACA, like, ACA is networks. Okay. Like, it's still really good, and the networks are evolving, pretty rapidly. So anyway, there's not we live in a time in an industry, or we're in a section of the industry where people flock to it from other sections, like maybe even life or something, or financial services, where they're like, I want to build a business on being able to help someone easily in every circumstance.
Yeah. So needless to say, Justin spent a lot of money investing in us. Right?
Spent a lot of money, but it was gratifying after I did it, though. They had me up against the wall, and I'm like, you know what? Shit, you guys are right. Like, I'm going to do that. And I had been approached by, I think it was funny too. Like, I've been approached by so many people about different things. And I was on the escalator, and these girls started talking to me and they each went straight for the throat, right into the $40,000 package. And they were the first ones that went right for that, and I bought it. So, some of the rest of them started with some of the smaller stuff, and Grant talks about that. So, on the rest of this.
So, what did you think about the location of GrowthCon?
I thought it was awesome.
I did too.
Miami Diplomat.
The Diplomat Resort.
Yeah.
Right? Resort and Spa, Hollywood, Florida.
It was spectacular. I would go back there in a heartbeat.
It was definitely built for conferences.
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed by it, because I've been to a lot of conferences, but I don't think I've been to one that's been big enough to take up 2 floors, or 3 floors like we did with that one. So I was impressed by the size of it and how they were able to handle everybody. And then to hear that it was reduced, what did he say? He had like 34,000 people at one a few years ago.
Marlins Stadium, 34,000 tickets sold. This one was 4,200.
So that's a good bit of difference in people, right? Yeah. I can only imagine being there. It'd be like you were at a full blown sporting event or something,
Yeah.
To me, that just doesn't seem like as much of an enjoyable experience as having a smaller group. And I think he even polled the audience while we were there, asking them, did you like having 34,000 people, or would you like it on a smaller, intimate scale? And I think everybody in the room kind of agreed, like, it was better the smaller it was.
Yeah. And they spent over $8 million on this event with 4,200 people. They averaged.
I think he said he spent $6 million when he had 34,000, and then
2,200 and something per seat.
Yeah.
And there are some seats in there that only cost $1,500, so those would have been at a net loss. But the majority of them were $2,500 plus. So, they did no sponsorships.
That was another thing that I thought was unique, was like absolutely zero sponsors.
Yeah.
Completely self-funded.
All of it was like Cardone Capital, 10X Health, all these grant companies. Now that's at a different level,
I was going to say, probably be a long time before we get there, because we actually value them relationships that we have with our partners, because a lot of the sponsors that we're getting to come to our event are people that are critical to your daily business. Yeah. You know, there's probably a handful of sponsors that we have coming that you can actually benefit by partnering with. Yeah. That's probably, like I said, in your best interest.
You know, when you look at the sponsors that we have at Medicare Con, a lot of these are, you know, organizations that we use or have used and would endorse.
Yes.
We would not let anybody there. Even the few FMOs that are there are FMOs that we have personally worked with and have relationship with, and for the most part trust with a lot of things. So, you know, carriers are obvious sponsors that we can all get behind. But then the tech platforms like Agency Block, Paperclip, you know, there's several others. You know, the lead companies like TVA and Lead Concepts. These are groups that, you know, we know that they have a quality standard on their platforms and their, you know, output.
Yeah, or companies like Advanced Diabetes Supply. You know, what they're doing is really helpful for our clients. I mean, it's almost like having another employee on your team. So, yeah. But again, just true companies that are being used by us for you know, a variety of different services. But I think that's what it takes to have our conference be super valuable. Is giving that value to you and introducing you to some of them, you know, partners that we're working with, I think is huge for you. So, so it was unique, you know, Grant not having any at all.
Yeah.
You know, every sponsor there was a 10X company or some sort of Grant Cardone or Grant Capital
and let's,
foundation. You know,
let's go ahead and get to the meat of this, because everybody knows Donald Trump was there. That was controversial.
That's gonna be my next question. What you thought of the speakers?
But you know, Donald Trump. You know, you got to take politics out of this, guys. And that was, you know, the whole point of what Grant was trying to say. You know, and I'll say this to Grant's, you know, effect. My gut tells me that if Grant had to pick somebody in the last two elections, he probably voted for Donald Trump. If you make a lot of money, and you have business interests, and you have a lot of people that are dependent on you to create your net margins to pay them, you're typically not voting for the people you think are going to screw up your tax loopholes and tax you heavier. You're just not. I mean, it's counterproductive. Like it, you know, most people vote with their wallet.
And I'll throw it out there. Grant's worth $2.6 billion. That's Grant Cardone's net worth.
Yeah, $2.6 billion. A lot of real estate assets. When you have a lot of real estate, there are some things that, you know, Biden floated about screwing with the rate at which you can rate at which you can depreciate your assets. There was another concept
that got shot down, right?
Yeah, it hadn't happened. There was another IRS form form where if you sold an investment property, you could take the profit from that investment property and roll it into another investment property and not have to pay taxes on it. Democrats wanted to get rid of that. And a lot of these, like, these are not tax loopholes. These are things that kill production of new real estate assets. Like we're about to be building a very large building. It looks like it might even be an $11 million, 45,000 square foot building in Tupelo. You know, there are some things that help us with that. There's a section under the tax plan under Trump that allows us to get a pretty hefty tax credit on the front end of it. Building supplies are up 25% in the last 6 to 9 months. You know, without the tax advantages of real estate, people are not going to develop real estate. And so when they're like, we need an infrastructure bill, you know, and then Elon Musk comes along, who's, I wouldn't say is a, diehard, warmongering conservative, and says, I don't even want you to pass the infrastructure bill. I don't need the extra electrical infrastructure because bureaucracy doesn't spend money correctly. And not to make this super political, but the point is the government's not going to do that stuff efficiently. You have to have private enterprise. You have to have, some free market. And we're not a complete free market capitalist system. So if you hate capitalism, you probably hate crony capitalism where, people get special favors because that's what we have. But if you remove the remaining element of capitalism completely, your infrastructure will crumble no matter how much they decide to print at the Federal Reserve. you can't print enough to offset the BS. So when Trump walks into the building, and everybody thought there were some signs. He had been wearing a 10X hat that looked like a MAGA hat. Trump had sent out some campaign emails that said 10X your investment or 10X your campaign donate, which was really, I still don't know if that was tied, but it was oddly, placed timing.
Right. I think we finally knew when Johnny woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym and run, and they wouldn't allow Johnny in the gym to run because they said that's where they put the Secret Service.
Yeah, the Secret Service is in the gym that morning.
And so we were like, who else would warrant the Secret Service? Like,
yeah.
They're not coming for John Kerry.
Johnny gets up. He's getting all motivated. He comes back 5 minutes later. He's like, the Secret Service are outside the gym.
Can't go in there.
So we were like, okay, we said couldn't be John Kerry, the climate czar. He's rich, but he got rich marrying his wife into his wife's family.
So we had a suspicion. I think Justin was the first one saying it. Yeah, it's going to be Donald Trump there. But to open the show with Donald Trump, very first speaker.
Yeah. And, again, Grant's a genius marketer. He got
the attention for sure.
People were talking about it. There were people that didn't know who Grant was that was talking about, where Donald Trump was, which inadvertently puts in the press. Oh, where was he? At this 10X Growth Convention? What's that? It's this thing this guy named Grant Cardone does. Who's Grant Cardone? Now all of a sudden, eyeballs are on a guy that they didn't even care about before. Political pundits are looking at him, right? It's an attention thing. But I have to say, I've seen Air Force One land in Tupelo twice. Johnny's went to one of the rallies one time. I don't think anything like this. Sitting front row, and the way Grant teed it up and said, you might know this person, blah, blah, blah. And these are all slightly vague, even though you're like, yep, that's it. That lines up. And then he said, some of you will know him as a real estate investor, but most of you motherfuckers will know him because he's the 45th president of the United States of America. And then boom, cannons and,
American music.
Proud to be an American comes out, and then Donald Trump walks out, and it went wild in there. And honestly, it was a lot of energy. And it was I would say it's the most energetic conference moment I've ever seen.
It's funny too, because they have so much pyrotechnics and smoke and flashing and everything. I think some of the speakers were actually like, yeah, what the hell's going on? He's probably like, I'm the president. Like, it's like I'm entering WrestleMania or something.
Yeah. So then they're on, and he's been to WrestleMania.
That's funny.
I
forgot about that.
So the stage is the center stage, and the stage is rotating, right? It's on a really slow rotation. So slow that if you got on the stage and you're walking around, you wouldn't know it at first. Because I didn't realize it at first.
Super slow.
Very slow. But if somebody sits through an hour speech, they're probably going to turn around,
twice or so.
Yeah, a few times, right? But it gives you a point where everybody's getting to be face-to-face with them for a specific, section
you
of
got your
speech.
picture moment.
Yeah. And so I don't think Trump knew it was spinning. And he says, apparently, we couldn't hear it, but apparently it was making like a vibrator noise. And he said, Is there some vibrator in here or something like that? And before Cardone told him it was a rotating stage, he said, "Yeah, it's a vibrator. It's for my wife." And everybody started laughing. It was a good time. I mean, he kept trying to bring it to politics, and like I was saying earlier, to give Cardone credit, I mean, he was trying to steer it away from politics.
He did steer it away a lot. I mean, it's hard not to get into that when you're talking to the president.
Yeah,
that's planning on running again. So it's like
he's
going to bring it up. So, but he did a good job deflecting it. And kind of
he would try to get him back to real estate. He told a great story about the Tiffany building and the first time he decided to put Trump on the side of a building. Great story if you look it up. It's not my story to tell, but maybe I'll tell it one day. That was a good one. It was good. I mean, it was just it was an area interview. It was light. It was nothing crazy. He tried to focus on the build, the from where he started to where he got. And I'm sure there's somebody out there. Oh, he started rich. Well, he got richer. And you start rich and nobody knows who you are. in a time where there's not social media and all that. And he didn't really start nearly as rich as he is. And, people be like, oh, he's lost money, blah, blah, blah. Well, they don't really understand stuff.
I know plenty of people that inherited money and didn't do shit with it.
Yeah. It's over 70% of the Forbes 100 list made their fortune within their lifetime.
So,
yeah. So, and even the other 30%, it's probably still like they made a significant portion of it. They just started with a little bit more. So, anyway, that was cool. And then, Tillman
Fertitta, owner of the Houston Rockets,
Landry's
600
Seafood.
Restaurants and hotels throughout the country.
Yeah.
He was good. I was excited for him because I can't even remember the name of the TV show, but it was like a Restaurant Impossible or bar rescue type show where he was, rejuvenating restaurants. So I was aware of him, and I knew he'd bought the Houston Rockets, but that was surprising to have him come out just because I didn't know he was worth $12 billion.
Yeah. And Grant said $6 billion, and he corrected him and said north of 10. And then eventually I think they settled on 12. They come out
12, yeah.
But he was, somebody that's controversial too. I mean, is a guy that right after COVID hit, he laid off like
30,000 employees or 40,000 employees.
Something crazy. Which he had a good excuse for. But, when you think about the cost of those businesses, if you don't lay them off, like you'll go bankrupt, and then you can't even later on provide a job for anybody. And he said like 98% of those people are back working for him now. After about 2 months, he started hiring them back up in Texas.
It was like he's had a lot of them come up and thank him because they were able to be the first ones to start drawing unemployment before everybody really started getting laid off. They got
to the line quickest, which it was a big line. So, but he was interesting. He talked a little about his real estate side, the casino business, all of that. Then who is the other the real estate guy who's one of Grant's connections that brings him deals?
Robert Givens.
Yeah. That was very interesting because you really got into the real estate, got a little bit into the details, and that was interesting.
That was funny. He was the guy was from Memphis.
Yeah, originally, from Memphis. So,
I thought the CEO of Goldman Sachs, Lloyd,
had like a $70 million annual income from Goldman Sachs as the CEO.
But some of the stories and some of the stuff that they got into was pretty interesting about how he, Grant kept asking him like, how did them conversations with the government go? Or like how, when the president calls and says, hey, you guys need to, do more deals so we can start selling more oil to this country and stuff like that. I don't know. It was almost like you said, a behind the scenes perspective of what they were, going through or what them talks look like. And so I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, no, he was good. As far as like energy, you had Stormy Wellington there
Stormy was great.
Yeah. I had heard of, Sid, who's back here behind us, knows her and has done some work with her before. But she was a very, very good speaker. And it was a really,
passionate
It was a very passionate speech. And then when Grant came up after and they were, talking together, it was a good moment of like, solidarity about, just coming together, black, white, female, male, all that stuff. It was a good moment. And I think everybody that was in there felt it, and it was real and authentic. TD Jakes was a great speaker.
Probably one of the,
Tim Story, who we've met and know, and we've had him on the podcast before. It was his best speech I've ever heard him give.
I thought the same. I've watched several on TV because, he gets publicized a lot. And then we've seen him several years ago. But I thought that was the best I'd ever heard Tim speak as well.
I've heard Tim speak and let's be frank, I've been underwhelmed. If I heard him speak this time first, I had a whole different perspective of him. He brought a lot of energy, and he did a great job. And I will tell you that one-on-one, when you're talking to him a little bit more off the record, a very personable, likable human. So,
and then Glenn Stearns was there. He did the interview with Glenn and Mindy Stearns.
Yeah, they're the undercover billionaire.
Glenn was the first one to do the Undercover Billionaire show. And I actually went back and watched it since I'd seen it before, not knowing who he was. But then after listening to him talk for an hour, I went back and watched it again. Yeah.
I still haven't seen the whole Grant one.
You know what I don't like about it is when they did Glenn, it was just Glenn. The whole season, every episode was just Glenn. In the second season, they tried to incorporate like 3 people into one show.
I think they're trying to be diverse.
So it's like an hour show, but then you only get, like 15 minutes on Grant for each episode.
Grant was surely the most entertaining on that one too. And, because I know exactly what you're saying. Honestly, well, and that wasn't. I will say, like, GrowthCon had a lot of pitching going on. So there were some speakers like Jared Glant, Peter Vargas, Brandon Dawson, and Gary Brecka, who are all part of companies that are owned and operated and fully ingrained in the 10X, business.
But there are all some that had probably some of the best speeches.
They were very good speakers. I mean, but all
Pete
of them
and Gary Brecka, Pete Vargas and Gary Brecka, I thought were one of the best ones there.
I was blown away by Gary Brecka, and he was talking health, and he talked it in a way that was smart but made sense to me, and had a very good. I went up to him later and met him in person and told him.
I know I loved it, but it was so hard for me to regurgitate all that to my wife.
Yeah, I've been trying. Like, we need a infrared bed and a grounding mat, babe.
She's looking at me like, what? Why?
I told her, I was like, you got to quit taking that poisonous multivitamin. It's got cyanocobalamin, which is rooted in cyanide. What are you doing with your life? She's like, I'm still going to take it. And then later on, she's complaining of some symptom. And I'm like, yep, that's cyanocobalamin. I told you to throw that shit out. I went on Amazon and I found her a multivitamin that had methylcobalamin in it. Because I'm like, you got to have the highest form of cobalamin. You can't be putting this poison in your body.
But that's what a powerful speech does, right? Like it changes your mind, it changes your perspective, it starts getting you thinking about things that you probably wouldn't.
I didn't even factor that into what I spent there, but I did go and spend $600 on their genetic test.
Yeah, I bought me and Heather one just a couple of days ago because they're still letting you take advantage of the offer.
I hadn't got the results yet, but when I do, maybe I'll do a review of my gene mutation results from the 10X health test. We're thinking about, when we get our building, having a spot in it where we open up one of those health clinics.
We did talk about that, franchise and
shit. I'd like to have it just so I could use it myself.
It's a selfish business.
Yeah,
so
I can make any money. I just want to be able to do the stuff for me and my team for free. But yeah, who else was there?
Rick Ross, I guess.
Rick Ross, baby.
I
met Rick Ross and Flow Rider's manager while I was there. He also told me right away that he could get me Jamie Foxx. So you never know. We might have Jamie Foxx up in Medicare Con.
He had a T.I. perform live. I was underwhelmed by T.I.'s live performance.
I like whatever. Clown on, I don't know what your musical taste is out there, but I like all music. And I love T.I.
Yep.
He's one of my favorite, hip hop artists. But live, man,
wasn't it?
It ruined it for me. I don't know if he just doesn't care anymore or if he just never sounded good live. But I would say, like, T.I., I will forever buy all of his recorded music, but I would not get hyped up about a live performance. Now, Flow Rider, we actually missed that. It was at the welcome party. We got in a little late.
Heard it was good though,
but we heard Flow Rider was actually really good live. So everybody kind of said the same thing about poor T.I. It was still cool. Because you're like, with T.I., it kind of felt more like an intimate setting. It's a party, not a concert. So you're just kind of like, right there.
Yeah, it was set up like in the back of the Diplomat. They had a pool right at the back of the pool, stage set up, and then everybody's just around the pool. Told nobody to jump in the pool, right? So
Johnny jumped in.
So, I'm chilling. It's like 10 o'clock, concert's winding down. He's still like probably putting on his, grand finale. And then I'm looking over like, who's this dumbass in the pool? And then it's Johnny Brock and nothing but his blue deltas swimming through the pool. And I'm like, what are you doing? And so.
Yeah, man, that was good.
But it's funny because Grant Cardone did say something about the guy. He was like, the guy that jumped in the pool.
So he's promoting a show. So they're starting a 10X Studios things. And one of the shows is like.
It's called Whatever It Takes.
What's the show that.
It was like Fear Factor, but
it's like Fear Factor meets Entrepreneur.
Yeah,
right?
if you win the show, 100% funds your business idea.
Yeah, he's going to fund it and become your partner on that business idea.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you pitching your business idea, and then you have to go through these hurdles like, in cages with scorpions and sleeping in haunted houses or, caves or whatever. And so he says, some of y'all need to be on this show.
Yeah.
And he says, that guy that jumped in the pool last night would be perfect for it. Yeah. So if we can get Johnny on there, we might let him go do that.
Yeah, we'll let him go see if he's got whatever it takes.
Yeah, that'd be good. So, yeah, man. Well, we're going to probably get here to wrap it up. But any questions you guys have about GrowthCon or whether it's is it worth it for every single person to go to? I think it depends on where you're at.
Very subjective.
It's for us. It was absolutely worth it. We have a sales team. We have we throw an event ourselves. We have subscription-based learning products. We'd never gone and we didn't emulate any of this stuff off of their things. I'd never been in those things. But as we see it, we're like, oh, okay, this has got a lot of similarities to our brand. He's just scaled it to the moon in a different niche.
Yep.
And he's heavily, I would say, 50, 60% of the audience is in real estate.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. And the rest is actually pretty divided up. I thought there would be a lot more insurance agents there. I'd say 10% of it was insurance, financial services people. There was people from
a lot of acupuncture, chiropractors, doctors.
Yep.
I thought that was interesting.
Naturopathic medicine, chiropractors. Yeah. There was a lot of that. I met a concrete construction person. I met
bunch of landscaping guys. I met a bunch of landscaping guys.
Yeah. House flippers. Now, so you got to think about this too. If you're from a metro area and you're in a service that looks, that partners with real estate agents, or house flippers, or contractors, all that, for them, there's probably a networking aspect to it. Meeting a whole bunch of other real estate agents and networking together. I was sitting at a table at lunch one day, and to my right was a guy who was a concrete contractor, and to my left was a couple who were house flippers. And when I first sat down, it was just I sat down, this couple sat next to me, and we're talking, and I asked them where they're from, and they said Salt Lake City, Utah. They said they flipped houses, and I'm like, oh, cool. And then this guy sits to my right, and I start talking to him, and they're not talking to him because they're talking to somebody else. And he's like, I do concrete work, contracting, and then I said, oh, where are you from? He said, Salt Lake. And I'm like, hey, they're from Salt Lake. So then I introduced them, and then lo and behold, it started to look like they had a good business relationship. So, or could have. But that was a very, those are for that industry, building, flipping, real estate sales, commission-based, all that kind of stuff. Definite win for them, probably. For most people, if you're planning an event, sure, definitely. If you're, if you're just out of energy and you got the money, and you got plenty of money, I would say go and check it out when you're definitely.
That event will give you some energy.
Yeah.
If you're out of the energy, it'll give you the energy.
It's just going to, some of it, when I first got there, I was probably a little bit, I was like, man, it's a lot of flashy people, a lot of, man, look at all these people dressing up like something they're not. I will say, my first perspective was when I went in that it was a lot of people that probably didn't have the money to be there that were overspending. By the time I left, and I won't tell you why I think this, but I actually think a significant portion of the room is doing very well and still comes. And there were probably still some, if you're an individual person, you don't have a business with a sales team, you're not an event coordinator, and nobody else is paying for your ticket, and you're making under $100,000 a year, I wouldn't go. I think you got some work to do. You need to create an infrastructure before that level of inspiration to build something is worthwhile. But if you have a good business that's growing and you think you're kicking ass, check it out. And then if you still think you're kicking ass after it, then maybe you are.
Yeah. Maybe check out a more niche down event.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you're in health insurance and Medicare, or final expense, or any insurance, or even a space where you're considering Medicare, Medicare Con is the event to attend, and it will be awesome. If you stumbled across this and you have no idea what you want to do, you don't know what to sell, health insurance, guys, is a health insurance and Medicare is an extreme opportunity. Extreme. They kept talking about a $10 trillion wealth transfer while we were there. Let me tell you this. I was looking it up, and in the next 25 years, these statistical groups have actually come up with a figure that there is a $68 trillion wealth transfer over the next 25 years in the U.S. 68 trillion. That's the real figure over 25 years.
That's big.
And health insurance and Medicare is a niche to get into.
Well, just to put it into perspective, we had 22 million people on Medicare to start the year 2020, and by 2032 we'll have 79 million people on Medicare. So that's huge. A boom, over 50 million people in Medicare in less than 10 years.
And simultaneously, and by the way, there are already groups of people in this industry that have gotten rich even when there was only 20 million. Now, simultaneously, there are people selling their business like crazy, meaning sucking all the wind out of the sails of these people that represent all these Medicare beneficiaries, health insurance beneficiaries, are now going to be up for grabs. There are people that are retiring with no succession plan that worked, and there are people that are even dying, still working. So, and that's actually not disproportionate. It's the rule, not the exception. Most people in this industry are old, are over a threshold where they're over the hill, so to speak. We have a big gap. If you're 25 years old and you're like, insurance sounds boring, I like real estate. Guys, sell insurance, invest in real estate.
Yep.
There are so many people that think real estate sounds cool and get into it. And I'm not saying you can't make money in it, but health insurance and Medicare is a great way to build a business, make money. And then if you want to pivot into real estate, now you're not a broke-ass little bitch. Because when you're a broke-ass little bitch, getting into real estate is a lot harder. It's a lot easier to go out, get into health insurance, build a
good income, a good residual
income. Build an agency, and if you need help with that, well, that's what we're here for. We develop SaaS resources. We develop, universities and training platforms.
As much as we can think of.
Yeah, anything. If you get an idea of something that you wish that we would build, you don't think we have, drop it in the comments. And leave us a review on all the podcasting platforms or your preferred podcasting platform at Apple Podcast or Spotify primarily.
All
Google
the major
podcasts,
ones.
Anything that you think, anything that you view podcasts on, please leave us a comment. Please subscribe on YouTube. Do not miss the $68 trillion wealth transfer that's coming. You need to be taking advantage of it somehow. Get in the room. Medicare Con, April 21 to 23. Next year, it'll be around the same time. So if you're looking at this after April 21 through 23 of 2022, reach out to us at MedicareCon.com to check out the 2023 Medicare Con. Talk to you guys soon. It's time to grow your agency like a guru. Introducing Go Guru Pro. The Go High Level platform allows for minimizing software-based subscriptions and grants control over several facets of marketing and communication. Automate your workflow, communicate with your leads, book appointments in advance, and house all your clients in one secure location. Visit goguru.pro and schedule your one-on-one demo today.